gigantic headline continues to be that man right there is still available. Shedeur Sanders, who had a prolific 24 season, all-time FBS record, completion percentage of nearly 72%, threw for 4,000 yards and 37 touchdowns. He is going to be a third-day player still waiting to be drafted.
It is, in fact, a quarterback's world, and at the center of some of those worlds, 3 more on day 2. Sharpe, Milroe, and another hearing their name called in Gabriel, the name we have not heard. Shedeur Sanders heading to day 3, having yet to be selected. Post-draft is presented by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico. We say hello from our HQ studios. Rand Carthon, Ryan Wilson, Joe Musso, as we explore all that we saw and some of what we did not, starting right there with Shedeur Sanders. We hear names like Ward, Dart, Shuck, Milroe, and Gabriel all coming off the board. 5 quarterbacks, and just a couple months ago, what could have been 1-1 is still waiting on day 3. Rand, what does this tell you about the way the league is looking at Shedeur right now?
I'll be frank and I'll be honest. You cannot convince me that Shedeur is the 6th best quarterback in this class.
And I'm not arguing with you.
And no one can convince me of that. I think there's a bigger conversation that needs to be had as to the why. Is it being held? We heard our own Jonathan Jones talk about the NIL era and who his father is, and I don't understand why we're holding that. If that's what's being held against him, why we're holding that against this kid. All right, let's just say he has a maturity issue. Let's just say he does. He has not done anything criminal and done anything that would put an organization in a bad light. So for me, I'm struggling with this right now because it does not make sense to me. And for one thing I want to say, and I went back and I'm looking at previous drafts, and there are quarterbacks that have gone in the 1st, in the 2nd, in the 3rd, that I do not think are better quarterbacks than Shedeur.
Yeah.
And there have also been players taken that have had criminal past and background issues, and yet they still come off the board and given a chance. I don't understand why this young man has to suffer because of what people perceive him to be.
It's a great point, and it's extremely well said, Ryan. When you look at Shedeur Sanders and the way that you had him graded out into this class, it'd be one thing if we didn't see any more quarterbacks go here on day 2. We saw 3 more names come to pass. And when you look at them relative to the talent of Shedeur Sanders, what comes to mind right now?
No, I think Rand touched on it and said it very well. Our Jonathan Jones also said it well. We heard Damian Harris talk about that during the pregame down in our Fort Lauderdale studios. And to Rand's larger point, and I think it's one worth reiterating, is that we see players every year either drafted or signed as free agents who have off-field issues and legit red flags and things that if you knew what the teams know about these players, you would maybe be picketing outside of the offices of these teams as to why they were bringing these players into the building. And as Rand noted, Shedeur doesn't have a criminal past. He's 23 years old. And when I was 23, and I would imagine when you guys were 23, we were probably doing things that adults might consider immature. And I understand that. And it's not necessarily the team's jobs to hire you. You do have to put your best foot forward. And I have an 18-year-old, and I'm sure that Coach Prime has had the same conversations with his sons. You have freedom of choice, but you don't have freedom of consequence. Things that happen in life also aren't fair. And this is an opportunity to learn and perhaps grow. And you can be angry about it, but I think you have to focus that energy and that anger towards something positive because like life ain't fair. Things are not going to change just because you are angry at your perception of being treated unfairly. And it does feel unfair from the outside looking in. But hopefully it's an opportunity for perhaps Shedeur to take a look and say, okay, what can I do better? Even if in the moment I don't know if this is necessarily the just desserts that I should have coming my way.
Whatever the cause is one thing, but the effect is that Shedeur Sanders is available on day 3 of the NFL draft in 2025 when the position of quarterback has never been more important in this sport or in sports in general. Someone's going to get a ton of value on day 3 with that talent coming to town. We'll see when that is, we'll see who that is, but this is also a celebration of dreams realized here across day 2 of the NFL draft. We're going to get into some other names, and let's start there at number 40 with the Saints selecting a quarterback in Tyler Shuck, one of the names that goes obviously before Shedeur Sanders, the first time since 1971 that New Orleans goes quarterback in the 1st or 2nd round. That is prime capital, Ryan Wilson, to go with a quarterback that might not be ready, and you need someone ready right now. What do you make of that pick?
Not only might he not be ready, he's going to be 26 in the fall. So he's played literally 7 seasons in college football at 3 different stops. And changing schools is no big deal in today's NIL era. But the lack of starts under his belt, the injury history is a huge concern. He looks the part. 6'5", ran in the 4.6s. He has a big arm. He can make plays outside the pocket. But his footwork has a lot to be desired. And his name is Tyler Shuck, but as I watched him, I just kept thinking Shuck and Duck. There's a lot of, there's not.
It's ready-made for you.
There's not a solid base consistently, and I get the offensive line struggled at times, and he was the victim of 24 drops. All those things I get, and we don't have to make this all about the guy that wasn't taken, but if you're looking for a ready-made quarterback in a Kellen Moore system that plays indoors, gets the ball out quickly and plays on time, I think your eyes go to Shedeur before they go to Tyler Shuck. Now, there are teams in the league that love Tyler for the physical attributes that he brings. And there were very few teams I talked to that weren't high on Tyler Shuck, and I get all that. But I think sometimes we can overthink this, and no disrespect to Tyler Shuck, but I had him as more likely a day 3 guy than going top 40.
All balls of clay right now need to be molded, need to be taken into a building and put into a system. How do you like the fit of player to system?
I think it fits what Kellen wants to do. And like Ryan said, this guy has physical attributes and physical traits that you can develop and work with. But also like Ryan said, we're talking about a quarterback that's going to be 26 in the fall. And I believe he's a married young man. And so he has that level of maturity, and he can come in, and he's talented. He's talented, but he has the injury history. So he's going to still has to prove that he can stay healthy. And what we saw physically develop at Louisville is what's real and not a one-year knockoff.
Let's get off the quarterbacks here. It feels like the Raven-Simone moment where you look into the camera and the thing starts spinning, because that is so Raven, what they were able to do in getting Mike Green.
Well done.
This is a talent that you had graded far higher than this, and we have already alluded to off-the-field issues, the lack thereof for Shedeur Sanders. There were some allegations here for Green that caused him to drop down this board. When you look at what the Ravens got, it feels so quintessentially Raven to get this sort of value at this place in the draft, Ryan.
Yeah, 6'3", 248-ish, 251 is about what he played at. And ran no player for me played with his hair on fire from snap 1 to snap 60 as an edge rusher than Mike Green. UVA transfer. My comp for him in terms of the way he played hair on fire wise was Will Anderson, who we talked about as being the 3rd overall pick a few years ago for the Texans, and he's certainly panned out. You see the 17 sacks there, had 33 hurries. And they played Ohio State because they always talk about, well, the competition when you're not a Power 4 school. He looked every bit like he belonged against Ohio State. And I think this is, again, you talk about it, Odafe Oweh and David Ojabo both going into the final year of their deal, so they need guys off the edge with this sort of juice.
Ran rich defensive tradition, doesn't even begin to tell the story of the Baltimore Ravens, the identity that they put forth. How does he fit into that identity?
I'm glad you used the word rich, because the one note I took is that the rich get richer. I don't understand how Baltimore falls into these type of picks. It seems like every year these guys who we covet and who we have ranked high on our big boards somehow always seem to make their way to Baltimore and that organization. And I think this is a prime fit. Like Ryan said, in my opinion, I thought this guy was the most skilled pass rusher, just in terms of being able to work his move and actually get home, which is why he led the country in sacks last year. So this is an awesome fit for that defense, and I'm pretty sure Zach Orr's fired up to have him.
Speed to power. We'll see what he can do in that Ravens system, and you know they have a way of making good great, and we'll see if that is the case for Green. Defense there, offense elsewhere. The Bears wide receiver, not necessarily a place of need, guys, but another piece for Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams in that offense as they go with a player that slid down boards as well. Ryan, I mean, you know where I stand on the case here. What stands out to you about the strategy in Chicago through these 2 days?
Well, they've been a defensive-minded organization for a few years with Matt Eberflus, and that switch has been flipped, and very quickly by Ben Johnson.
2 centuries.
Yeah. I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but fair enough. So Caleb Williams, you take him no matter what your philosophy is, offensive or defensive. And then you come back with Colston Loveland. Rand talked last night about the importance of Ben Johnson and those one running back, 2 tight end sets. So that makes sense. And then you get Luther Burden. You can never have enough weapons for your young quarterback. The offensive line appears to be where they want it to be. We had some conversations about maybe left tackle.